Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to Roots and Refuge Farm. My name is Jess and today we're going to do a garden tour. It is going to be maybe a little bit abbreviated because I can hear thunder in the distance. I don't know if that storm is going to make it here over my farm. It has been on and off again raining for the last couple of days, and that is our forecast this week. So if I don't shoot a short garden tour, I might not shoot one at all. To catch you up to speed, if you are not from around this channel, I'm currently gardening in Central Arkansas, Zone 7B. We have had our YouTube channel been doing weekly garden tours for, this is the 4th season now, and we are preparing to move to South Carolina in the Midland area, which is actually like Zone 7B 8A. Very similar growing season, probably a little warmer, a little longer there. And we're moving in about 6 weeks. So this is a little bit of a special garden tour season because I've planted this garden, I'm growing this garden, and a lot of these things I'm not even gonna harvest. But not growing the garden just wasn't an option. And my friend Jill from Whispering Willow Farm is actually purchasing our farm. And she is an avid gardener as well. She and I developed a course this year for new gardeners, currently on Teachable and available for purchase if you are looking for lots of gardening information all in one place. And I think you guys are gonna love watching Jill have this garden in this farm. And I love the fact that I am handing all of this over to somebody who is going to adore it as much as I do. So I came over here into the cottage garden area. My black hollyhocks were in all their splendor. Of course, they started to get a little crispy. I'm hoping that these seed pods will dry out and that I'll get to save some of those. Here, this is actually one of the plants that I'm planning on taking. This is a weed. But this hydrangea, I think I'm actually gonna dig this up soon and put it in a pot. I had 2 of these here. I had one here. This is a Limelight Hydrangea. There was one here and one over there, and that one did not make it past the first year. So I'm thinking this is one of the few plants that I'm actually going to dig up and take because I don't feel like this is the best place for it, and it's no longer symmetrical anyway. Over here there's some lovely white borage. It's about time to clean out my cool weather greenstalk there, but the warm weather greenstalk is looking pretty magnificent, if I do say so myself. Now we have this line of blackberry plants, and then we also have one back by the kids' garden. These have thorns, the others are thornless. And we're probably harvesting about a pint to a quart of blackberries a day off of about 8 plants. And I learned from you guys, if you wait until they're dull instead of shiny, they are a lot sweeter. I had a few tart berries on camera and got schooled by y'all. One of the things that I'm doing this year, kind of as my farewell to my garden, is I've allowed all the volunteers that have come up in any place that I could leave them without them really damaging something. I've let them grow. So here are some random volunteer sunflowers. There are a lot of cosmos growing out here that volunteered. And that was just my little way of, you know, like, letting the garden have a say in the last year of us being here. This beautiful plant is bee balm, and over here I've got my Keyhole Garden, which is just completely overcome with cosmos. Here's yarrow. Look at this. This is nuts. I cannot express how beautiful this is in person. There are dahlias in here. I may have to cut these cosmos back a little bit just so the other things that are in these beds have a chance. This is a wild flowering carrot, Dara. Here are volunteer zinnias. Gosh, this is so lush. Oh my goodness. Guys, look at this dahlia. Oh. My goodness. What a pretty flower. Golly, that's beautiful. Here you can see these are actually Gladiolus that are beginning to open. And this is a volunteer tomato plant that's just one massive plant down in there. I have no idea what kind of tomato it is. I didn't plant it. but I just let it go. So Jill is actually coming over to my house tomorrow, and I'm gonna do a video with her kind of talking about the transition and asking her some questions and giving you guys a chance to know her more. This dill smells amazing. But I told her, you know, like, hey, I'm planning on letting these volunteers grow because we're packing, we're getting ready to move across the country, and I wanted this out of the garden, but I didn't want to leave her just a massive mess. And she's so excited. I mean, she's so excited just to have the farm, but also to have, you know, inherit this wild garden that she's gonna be like finding food in all season. I think it is really cool. I think it'll be a grand adventure. All right, so over here we have Nasturtium, a couple of kinds. This is the orchid cream Nasturtium, which has a really lovely blossom. Oh, there's a little buggy on there. And I've got a few different of the variegated ones, and I'm not sure, I can't remember which one this one is, but they're all beautiful. And of course, the entirety of Nasturtium is edible, so you can eat the leaves and the flowers. They're kind of spicy, so I like to slice them really thin and mix them throughout other things. This is lettuce that has started to go to seed. It got really bitter, and I really just need to tear it out. I've kind of been grabbing handfuls and throwing it over to the goats. Here's my volunteer bean wall, which I'm harvesting just gallons of beans off this wall. So since I've been showing the green beans here, I've had a lot of questions about how to determine how much to plant for a family on green beans. And when you read about this, usually the way people will like give advice, they'll tell you how long of a row to plant, and that's assuming that you're planting those plants about 6 to 12 inches apart. I usually plant mine about 6 inches apart, maybe sometimes even slightly closer together for pole beans, because I know I have really good soil, so the plants are going to be nourished. But this is one 16-foot panel worth of plants, and they are probably they volunteered, and I thinned them out to about every 4 inches. So I would say, like, just an estimate, there's probably about 40 or so plants on this panel. And right now, harvesting every couple of days, because I don't want them to get way too massive, I've harvested so far about 6 gallons of beans off of this area. I don't ever like to say, oh, if you have a family of 4, you should plant XYZ amount of something, because I feel like there are so many factors that go into that you can't, I just don't feel comfortable guaranteeing that information. But I can tell you what I've harvested off of this. And a 16-foot panel like this is plenty for my family to eat fresh. If I want to can much, I'll usually go with doing like a 32-foot row, 36-foot row, whatever, 2 panels. Or a long row of bush beans. Here are the Badger Flame beets from row 7 seeds, and they're just getting to the point that they're really a good size for harvesting. I've harvested a few smaller ones and they were really lovely, but it's about time to pull all these out. Plus I accidentally planted the okra among these, and I need to get those out so that the okra can grow. You'll notice, here's the difference, like this is the same okra as this. See the different size of the, I call okra leaves tree stars, the different size of the tree stars, the okra leaves here, because this plant is competing with the beets around it for water and nutrients, and you can tell the difference in growth there. So as soon as I pull these beets out, those will have a big growth spurt. This is Okinawa pink okra, as well as Texas Hill Country, and I can see the first blossoms starting to form on that. That's pretty exciting. Now here on this panel, you'll see I've got these peas, and these are Beauregard sweet peas from row 7 seeds, and I've not cared for these at all. You can tell there's still a whole lot of them on here. Usually my kids are out here eating the peas, and it may be because it's been rainy and warm, but I just don't feel like these taste very good. I don't know. That one, someone told me to let the peas get larger because when they're smaller, they don't taste like much. And I would say now, the peas taste good. The pea inside tastes really good and sweet. but the shell's so tough and stringy. So I'm not massively a fan of those. I would probably try to grow them again in the fall to see how they do in better conditions. I like that they're not super tall. That's nice. But we'll probably harvest those, and like I'll tell the kids that the inside tastes good now and they'll eat some more of them. But I'm gonna probably pull those out pretty soon and replant more green beans, which of course Jill will be harvesting. Here I've got some Thai long beans, lots of onions that really need to get harvested and have something done with them. We've been picking lots of them and cooking them, but I need to just spend a few hours like processing those. Here I have some cucumbers which had started to ramble, and vining things, when they ramble, many times they will put down roots along the vine, and that's what happened here. And when I pulled this up, I guess pulling these roots up just pretty well killed that end of that plant. The rest of it looks okay, so I think the rest of it will recover, but I need to just cut that off. Here in this bed I've got lots of zinnias, and then of course my volunteer sunflowers are massive and lovely. Here we have some Queen of Monalco tomatillos, just a few plants in here. They filled out and they're starting to get pretty covered with fruit. This is my first time to grow these, but I'm really excited about them. And this is not a Kajari melon, which is what I thought it was, but that's a cucumber. I'm not sure what this is. I need to go back and look at my notes. I am slacking this year, guys. Actually, I remember now. This is a silver slicer, and there's a tasty jade, I think. I'll have to double check. And that over there is actually the Kajari melon that I damaged by pulling up. Hopefully I get some Kajari melons this year. Last year, I did not. These volunteer sunflowers are just amazing. They haven't even started to develop their flower yet, so they're gonna get quite a bit taller. Now I did, of course, just let a lot of things grow that came up. A lot of them were flowers. And some of these things, like these clematis here, this is a couple different varieties of clematis. These were just planted here, and this year they're just extremely glorious because they're very established. We are taking our green stalks with us, which these have Ozark Beauty strawberries in them. And as long as I keep these fed with some sort of liquid fertilizer, which I add into the water, these continue to set flowers and produce fruit all throughout the season. And my friend Daniel has dubbed them little strawberry blessings. And I think that's a pretty perfect name for them. Dang. That's what I get for eating strawberry blessings on a garden tour. While just a couple of basil plants would be plenty to give me all the basil I need, I always plant many. I've got these big ones here, and I try to keep them pruned to keep them from going to seed, but they do really readily seed where it's warm. So I always have new basil plants coming up. I'm sticking, you know, I stick seeds in and take little cuttings and root them and put them in other places. I try to keep fresh basil going all throughout the gardening season. So there's a lot going on down the tomato rows. I have not stayed on top of pruning super vigilantly, but I've got lots of green fruit out here. But you can see, like here, there are some areas where there's a good bit of spotting starting to show up on my tomatoes. My friend Amanda came out and tied a bunch of plants up for me while she was here, and that was super kind, and I'm sure my plants thanked her. And I'm hoping that we'll still get a pretty good tomato harvest. The other thing is, not pruning here can be pretty detrimental. And I've pruned some, I just haven't stayed on top of it. So they're bushier than normal. But it's also been extremely wet. We've gotten so much rain this year, and that is also really detrimental to tomato plants. We do have lots of plants back in the back, and the high tunnel plants don't have all that spotting on it because they're not getting rained on. But hopefully we'll be able to get a pretty decent harvest out of these ones in the front before they succumb to this stuff. So all down this row we also have pineapple ground cherries. Oh my. I just found the first ripe one. This is Jeremiah's favorite thing that grows in the garden. Hey Maya! Alright, I have called Jeremiah over.
Are you hiding a ground cherry or something?
Oh, you guessed it! You ruined everything! You ruined it.
I don't know why you'd scream for me to come to the garden if you didn't have a special
Are you happy?
That is good.
Are you so glad?
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks for a little
ground cherry blessing.
Ground cherry blessing.
There are ground cherries also volunteering all over the garden. If you ever have ground cherries, you will have them continually. They definitely come back. There's all kinds of volunteers going on right here. So we've got, this is an okra, that's an okra. Now this looks like an okra, but it's more of a rounded leaf, so I'm wondering if that might not be roselle. We'll have to wait and see. This is some sort of either cucumber, maybe? Not sure. These are all volunteer ground cherries, which I don't see anything ripe on those yet. All of these marigolds that are here, those are actually Mexican flame marigolds, volunteer. This is a volunteer tomato, and I just left it like a wild woman. We'll see what happens. Here we have volunteer basil, and this is, I might actually end up pulling that out. That's Malabar spinach, and I think that it would be really detrimental to those tomatoes if I let that go. And I have some Malabar spinach going right here that I think that'll be plenty, so that needs to be pulled. Here is glass gem corn in this part of the bed. More lettuce leaf basil, which this grew on its own. So a little tip about this lettuce leaf basil. And there are some basil varieties that have big leaves, not just, actually this might not be lettuce leaf basil. This might just be, I'm not sure what's going on here. This is a lot larger leaf than regular sweet basil, but it's not frilly enough to be lettuce leaf, but it volunteered, so I don't really know what it is. Could be a cross. If you have basil that has really big leaves like this, it makes really good little sandwich wraps. So I like to roll up like some turkey and cheese with one of these. Also, if you've ever done like a lettuce wrap, there's a really good recipe out there, and I don't know exactly what the original recipe is, but it's essentially like a Whole30 lettuce wraps. It's supposed to be like P.F. Chang's or something like that. And if you just look up Whole30 lettuce wraps, it's like the most popular one that comes up. And if you do that, and instead of wrapping it in lettuce, wrap it in big basil leaves like this, oh, so good. I feel like this thyme is, well, it's huge. Just for reference, that's about 8 or 9 feet, 3-ish meters. And then it goes the full 4-foot width of this bed hanging over the edge. And I just don't really have the heart to rip it out. So Jill will just have to decide if she wants to reclaim this garden bed, in which case she has my full blessing. If she wants to tear this back, she could take this to market. I know she does a lot of marketing. That's a lot of time. I am going to, I have a lot of dried thyme, but I'm gonna dry a bunch of this to take with me whenever we move, because I cannot imagine being in a place to have to buy thyme. I haven't bought thyme in a lot of years because of this. And I'll need some to hold me over until I can get another big thyme carpet established. Down here I've got some more melons. And then on the end, of course, I've got like different rose bushes and stuff. But this is my big volunteer tomato plant. So this is one tomato plant allowed to sprawl all over here. It's a cherry tomato variety. And I'm just not touching this year. No support, no pruning. And I just want to show you guys how a tomato plant grows, because it's so contrary to how we try to make them grow. And I think understanding how they grow naturally really helps us in understanding what we're trying to get them to do to grow upright. You can see here, lots of fruit set on it. Also, some sickness. Of course, I've unintentionally kind of made more experimental plants in my garden because so many of them do need help. I really appreciated Amanda coming out here and working on those and getting them tied up. I got some pretty good sized fruit starting on these. I'll be able to eat some of those before we go. I kind of doubled back around here. This rainbow chard is massive. I'm not harvesting as much as I was because the flavors really changed with the heat, but it's just so big and beautiful that I haven't pulled it out. I occasionally pull some leaves and give them to the goats. I juiced some the other day and it was pretty good for juicing. And they're just so big and beautiful. Look at that. I can feel a shift in the air. And I'm gonna go to the back before I get rained on real bad. I didn't hit everything, but again, short garden tour is better than none, right? So back here we have all this garlic. The tips are starting to brown and fall over, which means it's about time to harvest this. And then in the rows here, I've got some volunteer sunflowers from my little 3 sisters and a cousin garden last year, and they're glorious. So I'm looking out my back window and seeing sunflowers, which is such a sweet thing. This area was one that I had decided I was going to plant some things in it, but this end I didn't end up planting, and the mulch sprouted, and Jill and I talked, and she's actually bringing her silage tarps over this week, and we're going to tarp that and the other area where I'd spread compost out on the other side of the high tunnel. And that way it'll be prepared for them when they move in August, and she can go ahead and plant that for fall. Back here, my big old potato patch. There's so much food in the ground right here. Now some of them are starting to get a little spotty. Again, that's probably just from the rain that they're gonna start dying back, and those are about ready to pull. Now those potatoes are right next to this high tunnel, which has a lot of tomatoes in it. And potatoes and tomatoes, being relatives, can pass disease. And so if that were to become like concerning looking, I'm not really concerned about a little bit of spotting, because more likely it's just from all the rain. But if they started to look really sickly, I would go ahead and pull them and just harvest smaller potatoes so that there was no chance of them crossing over and making the plants in here sick. So in here we have so much life. Gosh, just walking in here, it's just so, I don't know, so green. I did an arch here in the front, and on it I have a variety of cucumber called Monalco, which they're already setting some little fruits here. It's really good to see. I'm excited to see this all grown up on top of it. And all of these tomatoes are determinate varieties. And you can see here that they are starting to put on some little fruits. And on my list this week is to get some of them in the back are already tied up to the trellis, and I just got to finish doing it, just supporting them a little bit with these cattle panel trellises. On this side, these are all dahlias, which Jill planted. Along the outside wall are leeks and shallots, and I've harvested a few of the leeks. They're pretty well good to go, so it's time to start trying to use those. And this is just a little bit of remainder of carrots and beets from the cool weather stuff. Look at that. Oh, and the splash of cream tomatoes and their variegation is looking so lovely. All of this is Jill's ginger that she came and planted, and it's coming up really nicely. And then down on this end, this whole side, these are all peppers. Ooh, there's a big spider web there. I'm not going to walk through that. And some of these are doing better than others, but overall peppers do get a little bit of a later start here, and I expect many of these will catch up and end up being really full and productive. And on that note, it is starting to rain and lightning pretty well outside, so I'm gonna get back in the house. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today on this tour. It's definitely a different year in the garden for me, but I'm so thankful to still have it. And while I am very much ready to get started at our new place, I do feel like continuing to grow this garden, even if it is a little wild and a little more hands-off than usual. I couldn't imagine not doing that. We had talked about the possibility of just covering up all the beds and really focusing on moving forward, maybe even moving slightly earlier in the summer, and it just didn't feel right. This is what felt right for us, and I'm so glad to get to share it with you. God bless you guys. Until next time.